There's a type of woman who will never leave you, but will also never choose you. She stays close enough to keep your attention, but distant enough to avoid real commitment. And the worst part? You don't realize it's happening until you've already invested your time, your energy, and your focus into something that was never real. This isn't about heartbreak, it's about misdirection. And if you don't catch it early, you end up building feelings for someone who's only playing a role. In this video, I'm exposing 5 unmistakable signs she's faking interest in you, and one of them will explain exactly why you've been feeling stuck this entire time. If any part of that already feels familiar, I want you to do something simple. Drop the word "off" in the comments. Not for me, for you. Because the moment you admit something feels off, you stop lying to yourself. And once you stop lying to yourself, you start seeing clearly. Now let's break this down. First sign, her words don't match her actions. And I want you to really sit with this one, because it's where most men get trapped. You hear, "I care about you." You hear, "You matter to me." You hear, "I love you." And instead of watching what she does, you hold on to what she says. Let me ask you something. When you've had a rough day, when you're stressed, when something actually matters to you, does she show up? Not with words, with presence, with effort. Or does she disappear, give you a delayed reply, or brush it off like it's not that serious? Because that gap right there, between what she says and what she does, that's where the truth lives. I've seen this play out more times than you'd think. A man opens up about something important to him, his work, his goals, something he's trying to build. She says she supports him, but then she interrupts him, changes the subject, or worse, subtly makes him feel small for even caring, or you're the one always initiating. You're the one texting first, planning the time together, keeping the connection alive. She responds, but she doesn't invest. And over time, you start feeling like you're carrying something that's supposed to be shared. Here's the part most men don't want to admit. You start rationalizing it. You tell yourself she's just busy. She's going through something. She's not good at expressing emotions. You fill in the gaps for her, because accepting the truth would force you to make a decision you're not ready to make. But let me make this very clear to you. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, you don't have to decode her effort. You don't have to question her consistency. It shows. Not perfectly, but clearly. What you're dealing with instead is controlled investment. Just enough attention to keep you emotionally hooked, without ever fully committing. It's not love. It's management. She gives you enough to stay, but never enough to feel secure. And that creates a cycle. You give more, hoping to balance it out. She stays the same, because she doesn't need to give more to keep you there. And this is where the dynamic flips without you realizing it. You start chasing clarity from someone who has no intention of giving it. You start proving your value to someone who already decided how much access you deserve. That's why you feel drained. That's why something never feels stable. Let me give you a simple check. Are you the one constantly trying to keep things from falling apart? Are you the one adjusting, initiating, explaining, fixing? Or do you feel like she's meeting you halfway, without being asked? Because real interest doesn't need constant maintenance. It sustains itself through mutual effort. Here's the truth most men resist. Words are cheap when there's no cost behind them. Anyone can say the right thing. But only someone who actually values you will back it up with consistent behavior. And if you ignore that gap long enough, you train yourself to accept less than what you actually want. And once that becomes your normal, even real interest will feel unfamiliar to you. So if her words don't match her actions, don't overanalyze it. Don't try to fix it. Just see it for what it is. Because once you start paying attention to behavior instead of promises, everything becomes a lot clearer. And if you think words can be misleading, wait until you start paying attention to what her body is telling you. Second sign. Her body language tells a completely different story. And this is where things get uncomfortable, because unlike words, the body doesn't know how to lie consistently. Let me ask you something simple. When you're close to her, physically close, does it feel natural, or does it feel like you're forcing something that isn't there? I'm not talking about big moments. I'm talking about the small ones that most men ignore. The way she reacts when you touch her. The way she leans, or doesn't lean, into you. The way her eyes meet yours, or avoid you the moment things get real. You can say, "I love you," with your mouth. You can text affection. You can smile on command. But the body, it doesn't fake comfort very well. And when a woman isn't emotionally connected to you, her body starts to create distance long before her words catch up. Maybe you've experienced this. You go in for a hug, and it feels stiff, not warm, not relaxed, just tolerated. You sit next to her, and there's this subtle space between you, not obvious enough to call out, but enough for you to feel it. You try to hold her hand, and she gives it to you. But there's no squeeze back, no natural engagement. It feels like you're initiating something she's just allowing. And this is where men get confused. Because technically, she didn't reject you. She didn't pull away dramatically. She didn't say no. So you convince yourself everything is fine. But what you're actually feeling is emotional absence, disguised as physical presence. Watch her when she doesn't think you're paying attention. That's where the truth shows up. Does she light up when you enter the room? Or does her energy stay flat? Does she naturally move closer to you? Or does she stay in her own space unless you close the gap? When you speak, does she lean in? Or does her body angle away? These are not random behaviors. They're signals. And the reason they matter so much is because attraction is instinctive. It pulls people together without effort. When it's real, closeness happens naturally. When it's not, everything feels slightly off, slightly delayed, slightly disconnected. Here's the reality most men avoid. A woman can maintain a verbal connection long after she's lost emotional and physical interest. Because words are strategic. Words can be used to keep peace, to avoid confrontation, to maintain benefits. But the body? The body reflects what she actually feels, not what she wants you to believe. So when her body consistently tells a different story than her words, believe the body, because what you're looking at is not confusion. It's misalignment. And misalignment over time always turns into distance. And once that distance sets in, something else starts to happen. She stops integrating you into her world altogether. She doesn't just feel distant. She starts keeping you separate. Third sign, she keeps you hidden, and this is where things stop being subtle. I want you to answer this honestly. How many people in her life actually know you exist? Not vaguely, not in passing. I mean clearly. Have you met her friends? Does her family know your name? Have you ever been naturally included in her world without you having to ask for it? Because when a woman is genuinely interested in you, she doesn't compartmentalize you. She integrates you. You don't have to push your way into her life. She pulls you into it. But when she's faking interest, something very different happens. You stay in a separate lane. You exist, but only in private. And every time there's an opportunity to bring you into her real world, there's a reason why it can't happen. She'll tell you she's just a private person. She'll say her friends are judgmental. She'll claim her family is complicated. But somehow, everything else in her life shows up publicly just fine. Her outings, her lifestyle, her experiences, everything is visible except you. That's not privacy. That's selective exposure. I've seen men stay in this situation for months, even years, convincing themselves it's temporary, that she just needs more time, that eventually she'll open up. But time doesn't fix intentional distance. It reveals it. Let me paint a picture you might recognize. You invite her to something important, a wedding, a work event, a gathering with people who matter to you. And suddenly, she's busy, or tired, or not feeling social. But when it comes to her own plans, she's present, she shows up, she engages fully. And here's where you need to stop lying to yourself. When a woman sees you as a priority, she doesn't hesitate to place you in her world. She wants you seen. She wants you known. Because your presence adds value to her life. But when she keeps you hidden, there are usually only a few reasons behind it. Either she hasn't chosen you, she's keeping her options open, or there's already someone else occupying that space publicly. None of those scenarios work in your favor. And the longer you accept being hidden, the more you train her to treat you like you don't matter. You become convenient, accessible, replaceable. Not because you are, but because that's the role you're accepting. Let me say something clearly. If she won't claim you publicly, she doesn't value you privately. You can have all the deep conversations you want behind closed doors. You can feel close in moments. But if that connection never leaves the room, it's not real in the way that matters. So ask yourself this. Are you part of her life? Or are you just a part of her downtime? Be honest with yourself. Are you being chosen? Or are you being hidden? Because once a woman separates you from her world, the dynamic is already set. You're not someone she's building with. You're someone she's keeping around. And when that happens, something else becomes very clear. She doesn't feel the need to reach for you, unless it serves her. Fourth sign, she never initiates affection. And this is where the illusion really starts to break down. I'm not talking about big romantic gestures. I'm talking about the small, instinctive things that happen when someone actually feels drawn to you. Reaching for your hand without thinking. Leaning into you when you're sitting next to each other. Touching your arm while you're talking. Looking at you in a way that doesn't need explanation. So let me ask you something directly. When was the last time she reached for you first? If you have to stop and think about it, that's already your answer. Because desire doesn't need reminders. It doesn't need instructions. When a woman is genuinely interested, there's a natural pull toward you. She doesn't calculate when to show affection. She doesn't wait for the right moment. It shows up on its own. But when that attraction isn't there, everything becomes reactive. You initiate, she responds. You move closer, she allows it. You create the moment, she participates just enough to maintain it. And over time, you start to notice something uncomfortable. You're not experiencing connection. You're managing it. You become the one who keeps things alive. You're the one creating warmth, creating closeness, creating momentum. And she stays passive. Not rejecting you outright, but never stepping forward either. That's not balance. That's dependency. Let's make this real. You walk in after a long day. You're tired. You want a moment of peace, maybe just a simple connection. You go to her, and she barely looks up. Or she gives you a quick, distracted response before going back to whatever she was doing. Now flip that scenario. If she had a rough day, you'd be there, fully present, engaged, trying to support her. That difference matters, because when someone values you emotionally, they don't just accept your presence. They seek it. They create moments with you, not just respond to the ones you initiate. Here's the truth most men don't want to hear. If she never reaches for you, she doesn't feel you. Not in the way that creates real connection. Not in the way that builds something lasting. And the longer you stay in that dynamic, the more it erodes your sense of self. You start questioning your worth. You start wondering what you're doing wrong. You start trying harder, giving more, hoping something will change. but it doesn't change. Because the issue was never your effort. It was her level of interest. You're not lacking value. You're just in a position where your value isn't being recognized. Or worse, it's being used without being reciprocated. So take a step back and look at the pattern. Are you the one always closing the distance? Are you the one always initiating contact, affection, connection? Or does she ever move toward you without being prompted? Because if the answer is no, then what you're experiencing isn't mutual desire. It's convenience. And when a woman gets comfortable with convenience, she stops investing entirely, which leads to the final piece of this, because if she's not reaching for you in the present, she's definitely not building with you in the future. Fifth sign, you're not in her future. And this is where everything becomes impossible to ignore if you're willing to be honest with yourself. I want you to think about the last time she talked about her future, not casually, but seriously. Her goals, her plans, where she sees her life going. Now ask yourself one simple question. Where were you in that picture? Because this isn't about what she says to keep you comfortable in the moment. It's about what naturally comes out when she's talking about what actually matters to her. Pay attention to the language. Is it always I? I want to move. I want to travel. I want to focus on myself. I don't want anything serious right now. Or do you ever hear we? We should build something. We could go there together. We could figure this out as a team. That shift from we to I tells you everything. When a woman genuinely sees you as part of her life long term, she doesn't have to force that inclusion. It shows up automatically. You become part of the conversation without needing to ask where you stand. There's a sense of direction that includes you, because she already decided you belong there. But when she's faking interest, you stay locked in the present. You're the guy she spends time with. The one she calls when she needs attention, comfort, or distraction. But when she thinks ahead, you disappear. Let me make this real. She talks about moving cities, changing careers, traveling, reinventing her life. And not once does she ask how that affects you. Not once does she try to align that future with you in it. Or worse, she avoids the conversation entirely whenever things start getting serious. And sometimes she'll keep you there with just enough hope. Vague promises. We'll see where this goes. I'm not trying to rush anything. Let's just enjoy the moment. It sounds open, but it's directionless. That's not uncertainty. That's controlled ambiguity. Because clarity requires intention. And if she truly wanted you in her future, you wouldn't have to guess. You wouldn't have to decode her words or wait for the right moment to bring it up. It would already be there, in how she thinks, how she plans, how she speaks. Here's the part that hits deeper than most men expect. You're not being pushed away. You're being held in place as something temporary, a space filler, a comfortable presence until something more aligned with her long-term vision shows up. You're not her plan. You're her placeholder. And once you see that clearly, everything else starts to connect. The inconsistency, the distance, the lack of investment. It was never random.